Welcome to Get It Right. My name is Susan Mwangi, and today we are with Dr. Jonathan Muriuki, who is the country representative for Kenya ICRAF, and will be telling us more about deforestation and its disastrous effects. Dr. Jonathan, welcome to Get It Right.
Thank you very much.
Yes, so let's start by knowing who Dr. Jonathan is.
So my name is Jonathan, as has been said. I have studied forestry in my first degree and then gone on to study agroforestry in other degrees. But I also work now with farmers and partners in government and NGOs to promote agroforestry, which helps with the stemming deforestation.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's start by knowing what deforestation is really all about.
Deforestation is when a certain parcel of land that is known as a forest is cut and changed into another land use, either to become an agricultural land or to become a settlement land. So people are settled there to live there. And it is no longer a forest in the sense that there are no more trees and the associated components that come with trees.
Okay, but when trees are cleared for agricultural expansion, we still depend on agriculture, for food security and all that. So how wrong is that?
Well, the truth is that agriculture depends on forestry for very many things. For example, water that is collected in the forest ecosystem comes into agriculture through various flows, either through the river or through the ground, and then supplies the crops. At the same time, we are able to get clean air from the forest and various other things, including fertility from the forest. And therefore, the more you reduce forests, the less agriculture is likely to be sustainable. At the beginning, it might look good, but as time goes on and on and on, you suddenly realize that it can't work anymore.
Okay.
You need the trees back.
Okay, so what contributes to land degradation?
Land degradation, there are two ways you can talk about land degradation. Land degradation in agricultural land is when you're not able to produce anything out of the land anymore. There is also what we call forest degradation, which is removal of trees or certain components of the forest. So the forest land is still called forest land, but it is not able to provide the services to humanity that it would have done if it was in its high quality status.
Okay, let's tackle the elements that really robs the soil its nutrients, declaring it infertile.
Yes.
What are these elements?
One of them is the utilization of the nutrients, in that the plants that have been planted in the soil have taken up the nutrients, and there is no replenishment, so the farmers are not bringing back nutrients through manuring or putting in fertilizer, and therefore you mine all the nutrients and then you're left with nothing remaining from the original material. The other element, which is the most serious, is soil erosion, because soil erosion cleans away the topsoil. It goes into the water systems where all the nutrients go and actually destroy the water systems, and it leaves the subsoil layer, which is not very good with nutrients, and therefore the land is infertile.
And what extent of land degradation is there here in Kenya right now?
Actually, about 75% of the land in Kenya is degraded in various forms. And whether it is the rangelands or it is a croplands or it is a forest land. It is a huge degradation level that is taking us into what we call desertification in the arid lands. Desertification is when the land is completely degraded that it cannot be brought back into productivity. Okay. So a minimum of 75% of the land is degraded.
And how can that be rectified? Since 75% is quite a huge area, how can that be rectified?
Of course, I am a tree person, and
Yes.
I think one of the things, to speak the truth, is that the tree is among the easiest ways to bring back the productivity of the land. Because the tree does not depend on the soil, only the topsoil. It is able to dig out nutrients from below ground and pump them back onto the topsoil. The tree is also able to withstand erosion in various ways by blocking wind erosion, but also being able to let water seep into the deeper layers of the soil, and therefore it makes the speed of erosion to be less. But when the land has been completely degraded, and it is coming to some things like what we call garis and other reels that make water flow very fast, you have to do a few other mechanical measures like gari restoration, digging terraces, to ensure that there is no drop that is going away with the soil. Yes.
And do people really understand this? Because why do we still have people clearing trees? And if these are the effects which are really, really not good for us as a nation and even for our development?
I think it depends on who has been speaking to the people and what message has been coming to the people. The past has involved various sectoral conversations.
Yes.
So the person who is talking about crops only comes to speak about crops. The person who is speaking about trees only comes to speak about the trees and the benefits of trees, never says there are any negative effects of the trees. The crop guy is saying about the negative effects of the trees. The person talking about the livestock is only talking about the livestock, does not say that livestock is tumbling on the land.
Yes.
But when people start hearing from an integrated conversation, then people are likely to get it right. However, farmers actually are very good with the ecology. They understand the agroecology. They are good at ignoring some of the so-called experts and doing the right practices. What we need as to experts is to build on that knowledge and bring in a bit of scientific facts that can make farmers promote what they are doing at larger scale. Yes.
Okay, let's discuss greenhouse. Is it greenhouse gas emissions?
Yes.
What is all this about and how is it related to deforestation?
Oh, that's a very good question. So greenhouse gases are some gases that are in the atmosphere, and the main ones are carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, carbon monoxide, and methane, which they accumulate in the atmosphere, and therefore they make the wavelengths of the sun. The sun comes down in what we call the short wavelength, and then it's reflected in long wavelength. That long wavelength cannot pass through the crown of the greenhouse gases, and that is what warms up the environment. So the more you accumulate gases in the atmosphere, the more the long wavelength of the sun remains with us, and it causes heating. So we call them greenhouse gases because they produce what we call the greenhouse effect. You know the greenhouses that are being produced in the farms?
Yes.
You accumulate heat because the wavelengths cannot go back, and so the atmosphere gets warmer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are some of the solutions now we are doing as a country, or let's talk even about your organization? What are some of these policies maybe you're setting up just to see that this problem is countered?
I think we begin with the country and say that the country is part of the global conversation, beginning with the agreements on climate change that we did in 2015 at Paris, that has allowed every country to prepare what we call a nationally determined contribution to reducing greenhouse emissions. And so every country is producing what we call national adaptation and mitigation plan that they can submit as a commitment. And so the Kenya has actually submitted a nationally determined contribution plan to reduce our emissions of greenhouse gases. As our organization, our research is on agroforestry, and therefore our work is to show how farmers can benefit by having trees on farms so that they get some what we call personal benefits, and the mitigation to climate change becomes a core benefit. Because it is not individual, and therefore I do not have to invest for the society. I need to gain some personal benefits, and then the society gets a core benefit.
Okay.
And so our research is based on what can farmers gain, and then we move from the farmer level to the landscape level to the country level, including what kind of policies need to be changed to enhance farmers' adoption.
And when we are talking about the trees that need to be planted, are people informed about the species that they are supposed to plant? Because I believe there are those that will be more helpful to the, when it comes to soil rehabilitating back the soil and all that.
Yes.
And there are also others which have their negative effects. So how do you go about that?
So the species that farmers need to plant, one of them is that they need to be agroecologically adoptable.
Yes.
So they are good for that area. And usually those are the ones that are indigenous to that area. And the other ones that I introduced also need to be, we look at where we are introducing them from, and now that area is similar to the area we are introducing them to, and now they are likely to affect other plants, because some trees actually come and destroy the ecosystem, which is something, they are called invasive species, and I can give a few examples later. But that is something that we try a lot. So some of the work that we are trying to do is to do research to ensure that the invisibility of a species, so that we can control how it moves around, some of the benefits from trees that are introduced, and how they can fit in a certain geography, and then incorporate that into what we call the ecological knowledge in the community, so that we build on that. Unless farmers have a culture of planting trees, it becomes difficult to introduce this, especially to farmers who think that the trees have got detrimental effects.
Does deforestation has any effect on aquatic ecosystem?
Yes, a lot of them. Now, think about the forest as a sponge. And when the rains come, the water sinks into the forest and it is released slowly as clean water. And therefore, the ecosystem in the water bodies, whether it is the lakes or the sea, is used to some bit of a certain level of water. And then you come and destroy the forest, and most of that water now, instead of sinking, it flows off as runoff, more runoff than should have happened. It comes picking soil from the agricultural lands, including the fertilizer and all the polluting agents that are there. And all that is put into the sea, into the lakes, including the plastics. It enhances the pollution of the water bodies, which of course you've seen the effects, sharks dying and fish stock dying. And also you start getting other plants growing because of the nutrients that have come into there that choke the living environment.
And do we have this under control?
There are many ways you can control this. One of them is making sure water does not gain speed. So at every stage as you're coming along the slope, you need to have structures that block the speed of water. And always make sure that water is getting into the soil and it becomes discharged slowly. When water is not discharged slowly, also the other effect is that the streams dry up because they always get the water from the discharge from the soil rather than from the runoff. So as long as farmers, first of all, are terracing their land so that no runoff is coming out of their land, they are planting trees, which is going to enhance a bit of the water infiltration, then that can get under control. Unfortunately, most of the land is still not under management, especially land that has been bought by what we call absentee landlords. They are just banking on the land and they don't manage it. So that causes areas where there's water velocity, which means even the smallholder farmer who is trying to do some structures, by the time the water comes into his land, it's already too bad and the structures are destroyed.
Okay. Okay, so the other thing I want us to discuss, when we look at other reasons which have led to deforestation, we are looking at logging, we are looking at livestock ranching. So we will want to see the alternatives that are being offered, because if you're discouraging deforestation, again, we still need to have an alternative. But before that, we will be taking a short break, but don't go too far.